no one ever has time to network. That's
Yep.
why you need to make time to network.
Right. It's a priority. It's a priority. We all have the same number of hours a day, right?
Exactly. And,
Yep.
and that's something that I always remind people that, for some people it happens naturally because you're in a job that requires that you attend a lot of events or you have a lot of meetings with different people. So you're always out there. But for those that don't have that opportunity, you need to try to find a way. And again, I'm not saying that everything means that you have to attend every single happy hour or dinner or conference that it's close to you, but it starts small. Like something that I started doing and I continue to do 10 years in, right, is that I dedicate my Friday lunchtime to connect with someone. That could be someone that I work with and I don't work with them very often. So I just see them every once in a while just to check in or to connect with a former colleague or just to meet with someone that I connected with on LinkedIn and learn a little bit about each other. No agenda, no asks, just meeting people and that channel open.
Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd, and today I'm joined by Daniel Mendez. He is a seasoned public relations and corporate communications professional with more than 17 years of experience leading global strategies and employee engagement, executive visibility, and reputation management across industries such as healthcare, energy, and pharmaceuticals. His work spans multiple continents, bringing a multicultural lens to corporate storytelling and strategic communications. He is also the founder of #CommsJobs, a volunteer-driven platform that connects PR and communications professionals with employment opportunities and with each other. Daniel, welcome to On Top of PR.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited that we're able to do this as well, and excited to share our audience a little bit more about CommsJobs and talk about elevating your PR career through community, clarity, and confidence. So a great topic, I think, for everybody here. Daniel, is there anything else you want to add to our audience about your background and experience before we get started?
No, I mean, the only thing that I think it's relevant just because of the story of how CommsJobs was born is that I'm originally from Chile. I started my career there. I studied there. So when I relocated to the US in 2015, I had to rebuild my network from scratch. Definitely when you relocate from one country to another, you always think like, oh, I'm going to leave my friends here, I'm going to leave my family here, but you never really think about leaving your professional network, and that is something that hits you in the face afterwards. So that is actually where the origin of CommsJobs, where everything started.
Very nice. Now, I've got to mention here, I'm seeing what looks like at least 9 guitars in the background. So do you regularly play all of those guitars?
That's a question that my wife always asks. But what a musician is going to answer is that each guitar has its own sound, so it's for different songs. You always have your favorite. So if you see the electric guitar there is a Fender Telecaster.
I see that.
And then my Martin there are probably the ones that I use the most. But yeah, I'm very passionate about music. I've always been listening and started to play guitar when I was 7 years old and had my band when I was in Chile. And that's another thing that I left there. So these days it's just me, myself and I trying to do some work with my guitars and the computer sometimes recording on my own. So yeah,
nice.
It's a good hobby.
Yeah, I see you still have some CDs back there too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's some CDs and vinyls at the bottom. So
nice. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, Daniel, give me just a quick story. What was your inspiration for CommsJobs?
Yeah, I mean, my inspiration really was I've always been very community driven, and again, as I was mentioning before, when I relocated to the US in 2015 and I landed here, it hit me real quick that who do I go to? Like, who can I call to advocate for me and introduce me to people, connect me with hiring managers or recruiters, and open the door for me to go back to the workforce after relocating, because my wife and I decided to move to the U.S. On our own. So we basically quit our jobs in Chile and just moved here. So I was very intentional about building relationships and connecting with people that could help me in my job search, but also maintain that relationship in the long term. And 5 years later, at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, the company where I was working at that point went through a significant reorganization. So unfortunately, a lot of colleagues were impacted, and a lot of them had been with the company for 15, 20 years. So a lot of them actually, that was their first job out of college. So their whole experience in the workplace was with that company. Their network was only in that company. So when I asked them how I could help them, what would be helpful for them as they start this job search, they were like, well, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even know where to go, who to talk to, because I've been out of the market for so long. And because I had curated my network so methodically, just following communicators and in the companies that I was targeting at that point, I was seeing a lot of opportunities coming up. So I offered to start sharing those opportunities with them using the hashtag #CommsJobs. And the reason why we used a hashtag was because it's open. Anybody, well, in the past, LinkedIn allowed you to follow hashtags. So you could just follow the hashtag, not even be connected with me, and you would see all those opportunities. And something that started just from my colleagues suddenly started growing and growing, and definitely filled a white space that was there of connecting people in the communication space, looking for jobs with those who were hiring. So fast forward to this year, when LinkedIn retired the follow hashtag functionality, we started a proper group in LinkedIn, and it has close to 3,000 users right now. And we just recently started one for the UK as well.
Gotcha. Well, good. Let's jump right into elevating your PR career through community, clarity, and confidence. I think this is a great topic. Timely now, but probably evergreen for everybody. So how do you build a supportive online community like CommsJob to grow your network and give back to your network, Daniel?
I think the most important thing really is to really focus on building relationships. A lot of people, unfortunately, when they're impacted by a reorganization or a reduction in force, and they're pushed out of work, that's when they start networking, right? And they start activating their network and reaching out to people. But it's very hard to operate in that environment where your house is on fire, you're very needy, and you're starting to reach out to your network. If you haven't done that before, right, when you were fine, when you were employed, when you were making a salary and you were in a comfortable position, it's very hard to activate or start doing that when you're in need. So the first thing that I always tell people when I connect with them on LinkedIn is that the best time to start networking was at the beginning of your career, right? Like probably when you went to college. And that was the best time. If you didn't start then, or you started and then stopped, the next best time is today. But this time around, you should never stop. A lot of people have this misconception of networking as a concept that involves, attending happy hours and dinners and paying for memberships to attend certain events or conferences, or keeping track of in a spreadsheet of all the people that you're connecting with and when you need to reach out to them. And I think that's really not understanding what networking means, because at the end of the day, what you're just trying to do is to create relationships, is to build friendships and make friends before you meet them. And to achieve that, the first thing that you need to focus on is in giving, not receiving. Right. So that's why it's very important that you start doing this when you're in a comfortable position, when you are able to give before receiving. So I would say that that's probably the most important thing about building a community that can be there for you when you need it.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, and something I think most people don't find out until it's too late. And Daniel, I'm just going to yes and what you said, because I've seen this happen a lot where for whatever reason, people feel comfortable and confident in their role, and they're not very collaborative and community minded in that role. And then when they start looking for help, it's actually kind of feels like a bad look. And the example I can give is, they don't, get back to people. They don't collaborate with people. They don't pursue opportunities to give back to the community or whatever the case might be. And I think it's because they're busy, and they don't really prioritize giving back to the community. They don't prioritize, this idea. But the examples I would use, and I've used this before, is like, a sports team who, doesn't want to participate in certain community activities when they're winning, but as soon as they start losing, they seem desperate to be connected to the community in any way the community will receive them. And to me, I just remember how they acted when times were good, right? And, or the example might be, the news director who would never cover the stories that we would pitch him on. But then as soon as he got laid off in that newsroom environment, he was telling me how good he'd be at PR and how much he admires the work that we do, right? So it's kind of one of those things like, I'm not saying he had to cover our stories, but he could have been kinder or at least more responsive, right? And I get it. We're busy. We're doing our jobs. We weren't expecting to be unemployed. But the day you're unemployed, it's kind of one of those things like, I remember how you treated me, and I worry that you're going to treat others internally or externally of my organization when that happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's a small world out there.
Yeah, small world.
That's why you should always be kind to everyone, exactly. and focus on, being in someone else's shoes, right? Like, how is it on the other side? Mm-hmm. And I think something very important that you said is that everybody's busy, right? Mm-hmm. No one ever has time to network. That's why you need to make time to network. Right.
It's a priority. It's a priority. We all have the same number of hours a day, right?
Exactly. And that's something that I always remind people that, for some people it happens naturally because you're in a job that requires that you attend a lot of events or you have a lot of meetings with different people. So you're always out there. But for those that don't have that opportunity, you need to try to find a way. And again, I'm not saying that everything means that you have to attend every single happy hour or dinner or conference that it's close to you, but it starts small. Like something that I started doing and I continue to do 10 years in, right, is that I dedicate my Friday lunchtime to connect with someone. That could be someone that I work with, and I don't work with them very often, so I just see them every once in a while just to check in, or to connect with a former colleague, or just to meet with someone that I connected with on LinkedIn and learn a little bit about each other. No agenda, no asks, just meeting people and that channel open.
I think that's good advice, Daniel. And I hope people listening will take the opportunity to emulate something like that, whether it's a Friday lunch or whatever the case might be, because, the cliche is what? Your network is your net worth. And at the end of the day, if no one knows you or hasn't had positive experiences with you, now's the time to kind of turn that around, because really what you're doing is creating a first impression. And like you said, and what I thought of as I was thinking about it is, it's just like pitching the media, right? The best thing you can do is kind of start building a relationship ahead of time, get them to know you, like you, trust you, and want to work with you before you just start, force feeding, whether it's hey, hire me, or whether it's cover my story or whatever it might be. Like, in PR, I talk about this all the time. It's time that we start putting the relationships back into public relations, because we're so focused sometimes on publicity or, getting media coverage or tracking, KPIs. And it's like, but did we build a relationship with that person? Does that person, that audience, that organization now know us, like us, trust us, and want to do business with us, instead of just looking at people as a number?
Yeah, no, I think I love that, putting back the relationships in public relations. It's something that it's always good to remember is that we do communications. Communications is a very inherently human ability.
Yes.
And it's the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
Of community, of society, of organizations, teams. So prioritizing that part and bringing back that human element of communication is so important these days, especially in the world of that we're living in these days with AI and the synthetic content that it's out there. I think humanity and authenticity and trust have become very, very important in our space and in many other fields.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Daniel, the next thing I know we wanted to talk about was tips for communicators who find it hard to self-promote, and how to confidently showcase your value, contributions, work, whatever it might be. I think this is a good topic. I saw this on LinkedIn earlier today, where people were saying that PR people are really good at elevating the visibility for other organizations and for others, but not necessarily any good at doing it ourselves. So I'm eager to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that happens a lot. I see it all the time, and probably I was one of them as well. Like, I think the fact that corporate communicators and PR professionals are always within either a corporate affairs organization or a human resources organization, if you're in internal communications, you're always very close to the policies, right? And when there's a social media policy in place, a lot of people feel that nothing that they do in a public space can be about them. It's always about the company. It's always about what you're doing for a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, and this is something that I realize, I guess, the hard way, is that unfortunately, jobs are not forever, right? They're not guaranteed. And if you build a brand on social media or in the platform that you choose, that it's attached to something that you don't own, it's going to be taken away from you at some point, right? So that's why I think it's very important to differentiate between a personal brand and an employer brand, right? And something that people really struggle with, and this is very anecdotal, right, coming from the conversations I have with communicators in LinkedIn, is that they struggle to get started because they feel that, my gosh, they have to put a content calendar for that, and they have to schedule things, and they have to participate and post every day, 3 times a day for 6 months to get to a point where they have a certain amount of followers and become, a recognized voice in the platform. And what I always say is, like, it doesn't have to be that way. You have to find what you're comfortable with, and you have to find what is it that you can do without putting a lot of work into it. So what do you feel comfortable discussing on your feet? Something that you can address with your eyes closed, right? Or without any preparation. And those are the type of things where you can start sharing your thoughts. I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but they say that only 1% of the people on LinkedIn are creating content. All the other ones are lurkers. So it's a huge opportunity, right? Because there's space for many points of view, for different expertise, for different ideas. And getting started in your journey of building a personal brand on social media doesn't mean that you have to put together a content calendar, post 3 times a day for 6 months straight. Start small. Start commenting on others people's content. Start engaging in those conversations. Jump in when you feel that you can add something that it's valuable, right? And then start see what resonates with the type of audience that you're trying to build. And then when you figure out like what is your niche, what is an area where you can definitely add value and add a perspective that it's valuable for others, then you're going to realize very quickly how you can start contributing to that conversation. And it's just finding your niche, right? So I'll stop there, but I think that's probably one of the key advices I will give people, and just to not put so much pressure on them, because not everybody is going to be an influencer and a content creator that it's going to have millions of followers. If that's not the role where you want to go, it's just really being part of a community where you're recognized as someone who has a good point of view.
Mm. Yeah, that is a good point of view. I was just reading something this morning that was talking about the idea of, I can't remember the term they use, but basically up-leveling or lifting up. I wish I could remember the exact term, but what they say is every interaction you have with someone, you want them to feel empowered and feel better because they interface with you on that day. And as I started kind of thinking about that thought, several people came to mind who are the types of people who do that. And so, Daniel, I guess my point for you and my audience is that people remember other people and how they made them feel, right?
Yeah.
And the studies show, actually, I saw this, like the most popular kids in school, high school, or whatever it might be, right? The research came out, I think, last year that said that the most popular kids in school are always the students who other students felt like they were liked by them. So in other words, Sally is popular because Sally puts on an aura or a position about you that makes you feel like Sally really likes you. And so because Sally likes me, I like her in return. And so, I think that's what we can do is whenever we interact with other people, we can just make them feel, liked, make them feel special, do it genuinely, right? But notice the things they do well and point it out to them, because that's how you really make friends and influence people, I would say.
No, that's a really great point. And definitely, I think another avenue to start contributing to conversations and adding value to your community is to amplify the voice of others that are already out there and you align with their thoughts. Because the fact that you are following me or I'm following you on LinkedIn, for example, doesn't mean that my neighbor is going to be following you as well. That's why it's a social network. And that's at the core of building communities, is how you bring people into someone else's field and scope so they can explore those ideas and then start other conversations. So that's definitely a really valuable point of building community.
I just looked it up. The term that the author uses is impression of increase. So you want to increase each person you come into access with, or you come in contact with throughout your day. So, and that's a great challenge. That's like one of those challenges of saying, like, I want you to go a whole day without complaining. And then, you kind of realize how much you actually complain. So, but in this case, the idea is to give each person, increase each person that you come into contact with. So this episode is brought to you by Audible. Enjoy 30 days free of Audible Premium Plus by going to ontopofpr.com/audible.
You're listening to On Top of PR with your host, Jason Mudd. Jason is a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing brands. He is the managing partner at Axia Public Relations, a PR agency that guides news, social, and web strategies for national companies. And now, back to the show.
Daniel, I know we had one more point we wanted to cover in this episode, which is why people often misunderstand the communication profession and how to change that narrative, which I'm all ears for this one.
Yeah, so I think that's actually how we connected on LinkedIn, because I wrote something about, it was a series of what is it that you do when you're in corporate communications, and I covered, internal communications, executive communications, PR, media relations, and others. And that series really started because there's so many people that struggle with this that I thought it was funny. It's just a very interesting thing, because our weapon of choice is stories, right? Is like narratives and tell compelling stories to others. but we are so bad at telling our own story and what do we do and how do we explain to people what corporate communications is and what public relations is. And normally it boils down to something like, oh, so you write emails, or oh, so you make posters, or signs, or you are in advertising. Because those are the key things that it's visible to people. And also I feel because there's a huge disservice that some TV shows and Hollywood have done with our profession. Most of the time is full of glamour, and like if you compare our work to the work that Emily in Paris is doing, right, it's very different. But in thinking a lot about why I think communicators struggle to explain others what we do, is because communications is something very obvious and it's very basic. It is something that we all do, no matter if you work in corporate communications or not. Everybody communicates. And when you explain to people, right, that you're helping others do something that they already do, right, it sounds like a fake job. It's like, right? It's like, but why do you have to write messages for someone? Like, they're the CEO of a company. Can't they do it themselves? Like, right? I'm sure they're smart enough. Or, why do you have to write an article, for someone that it's in IT to communicate a change? Can't they just do it? Like, we all do these things, right? But getting into the details and into the weeds of how actually internal communications works in a big enterprise, for example, where you have many different points of view, many internal politics, many egos, and you want to make sure to communicate something that it's going to engage employees, it's going to add clarity to the work they're doing or how they're contributing to the bottom line of a company, right? That is a whole different thing. And yes, we can all talk, we can all write, we can all, stand in front of people and just say a couple of words, but that doesn't mean that we're doing it right. That doesn't mean that we understand fully what the key message is. How is that going to cascade across the organization and have a series of consequences, right, after a message is deployed? So when we start getting into the details of all of that, it gets awkward. And that's why people struggle so much to explain what we do in corporate communications. I don't know if that resonates with you, but that is the perspective that I have in discussing this with many others in the community.
Yeah, it makes sense. What you're reminding me of, Daniel, is one, that, everyone does it. So whether they're good at it or not, they do it. 2, we have the unique opportunity to get paid for it. And then 3, I find that, the average, citizen, if you will, the average American, the average consumer, they have no idea how much ghostwriting takes place, right? We've kind of, as a society, adopted this idea that, there's speech writers, right, that help people write speeches. And yeah, the president might have somebody actually managing their correspondence, and it's not really them doing it. And by president, I just mean whoever, like the, president of the United States might be at the time, right? That's become acceptable. But I don't think, people really realize that, you're not actually, receiving, executives aren't really doing their own writing. And thankfully for many of them, right? Not only does that obviously keep us employed, but it helps the company communicate a little bit better too. And it lets the executive focus on their highest and best use and delegate to those that they seem to, or decide to employ. So.
Yeah, no. And I feel like one of the main fields within corporate communications, that is internal communications, is very misunderstood because, again, all the external stuff like media relations, public relations, advertising, marketing, all of that is very, very visible to everybody. But internal communications is always kind of like in the backstage.
Right.
And it's invisible for a reason. Like, if you don't know the work that internal communications is doing, is because it's being done well. Right.
Right.
And that's why, because a lot of my career has been in internal communications, I always try to explain, like, we are the bridge between a company's leadership and the employees, right? And what we do really is to craft messages that help everyone stay on the same page and really explain the big picture of the strategy of the company, help deliver everyday updates in pursuing that mission and reaching the objective of the company, and really mobilizing people around a common goal. Like, that's what we do. That's our expertise. So it's a business very related to emotions, to awakening things that are very human into organizations, and that you need to know a lot of different things to achieve that. And the most important thing is understand the audience.
Yeah, Daniel, that's a good point. As we begin wrapping up, our audience can find you on LinkedIn. How do they best do that?
Yes, so you can find me either in Comms Jobs. You'll find the group probably very, very easily, or you can find me in LinkedIn. My profile, Daniel Mendez at Ostica. I also have very highlighted Comms Jobs at the top, and would love to connect with everybody and invite you to follow my content and benefit from it, because it's free and it's available to anyone.
Yeah. And so Daniel and our audience will be sure to put a link directly to your LinkedIn within the episode notes so that you're easy to find. And any other resources, Daniel, that you think would be valuable for us to share, we'll also insert a link to those within that. Daniel, any closing thoughts to our audience here? And I'll put you on the spot. In addition to that, is to ask you, are you seeing anything in the employment marketplace right now that you feel like is an interesting observation, trend, or tip that you might have? And feel free to share several of those if you have them.
Yeah, I mean, there's many things there, but probably one thing that I'm really going to highlight, because I think it's very important, people really need to understand it, is that you're not going to be successful in your job search just by applying for jobs that you find in your jobs tab, right? On LinkedIn or Indeed or any platform that you use. You need to nurture, build, and maintain good relationships with coworkers, with former colleagues, with people that you meet in other settings, because humans connect with humans, and humans are going to open doors for other humans. Right. And really, what I hear from most people that have been successful in their job search is exactly by following that approach, right? Is relationships that have been built through the years, where there's been an exchange of value for several months or like a long amount of time, and where those two people can trust each other, right? And that's where you're going to find the best opportunities, or they're going to introduce you to someone that can offer an opportunity for you. So prioritize networking. And again, if you don't want to call it networking, prioritize making friends, prioritize reaching out to people, building your credibility and trust, and maintaining that, and never stop. Because something that I always like to remind people is that unemployment, it's a temporary thing. It's gonna pass. Your opportunity is out there. And as you land that next opportunity, remember the hard work that you have to put in reactivating that network. So keep that work going, right? So that you don't have to start from scratch again. I always say, stay ready so you don't have to get ready, because potentially it can happen again. Hopefully it doesn't, but it can happen again. If it happens, then you're going to be ready, and you're going to be grateful that you continue doing that work in a time where you were comfortable, not when your house was on fire.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know Alan Weiss is a consultant to business consultants, and he's got a great quote. I'm going to misquote it probably, but it's something like, if something happens once, right? Okay. If it happens twice, you might want to start looking in the mirror and figure out what you can do to prevent it from happening again. That's not exactly what you're saying, but the idea is the same, that, if you found yourself unemployed the first time, you might not have expected it. Second time, maybe be more prepared so that you're always ready, like you said. And I think that's really good advice. That's kind of like the Boy Scout expression, right? Be prepared. And I think that's what you're saying is, prepare yourself for the unexpected. we, as good communicators, should always be thinking like that. We just need to take time and invest in our own career. I had a client once say he's shocked that people aren't willing to spend 1 or 2 days a year looking at their personal finances, but yet they will work in accounting or finance for someone else, 40 hours, 60 hours a week, and never, commit 16 hours a year to their own personal financing. And I think we're kind of saying the same thing here, right? Invest in yourself and give back to yourself, because you're your best investment that you've got. Exactly
right. So that's really well said.
Yeah. Daniel, this was great. I really enjoyed it. Thanks again for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So this has been another episode of On Top of PR. I'm Jason Mudd, your host with Axia Public Relations. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor and share this with a colleague or friend. Take a moment and connect with Daniel on LinkedIn and let him know that you heard him on Top of PR. And again, it's Jason Mudd signing off, helping you stay on top of PR. Be well.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.